Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the live stream. Thank you very much to Amandeep and the crew from Creative Careers in Medicine for inviting me to talk to you guys tonight. My name's Anthony Llewellyn. I'm a doctor in Newcastle. I do a lot of things, but one thing I do is specialise in coaching online for mainly other doctors. And I know there's been a fair bit of interest in how you might get into coaching as a doctor. I think that's one of the angles that a lot of the people in the creative careers in medicine community get into in terms of an alternative career as a doctor. I thought it'd be helpful for me to share a bit of information about my journey into coaching, specifically around the idea of coaching online, which is pretty much most of my coaching really these days. So just like I'm here tonight, I might be broadcasting to someone in Sydney or Perth or halfway across the world even, doing some coaching with them. So I wanted to share with you kind of my tips and my experience with that and some ideas, and maybe encourage you if you're thinking about getting into coaching in any way, shape or form, that it actually, it requires a bit of work and effort, but the thing about the internet these days, it means that if you've got a skill to share or a talent for helping other people in any way, shape or form, you can do that, and it can become a side gig for you or potentially become your main gig, like it's starting to become for me. So I've prepared a little PowerPoint presentation, which I'm just going to shoot up on the screen in a sec. And before I do that, actually, I might just check in the chat box. If you are hearing, if you're hearing me, if you could do a little plus or something like that in the chat box, if you're on YouTube or something like that, just to let me know that you're hearing me loud and clear, that'd be great. So I'll bring my PowerPoint up and we'll get into that now. I'm not sure whether I can see the questions. I don't think I can see the questions while I've got my PowerPoint going, which is why I was doing a bit of a fiddling there before. So what I'll probably do is just pause every now and then just to see if there are any kind of questions coming through as we get into it. So what are we going to cover tonight? We're going to cover how I got into coaching, talk a little bit about who I think can coach, particularly what doctors can coach. That kind of leads into some ideas about what you might be able to coach in, and how to go about coaching with a focus on coaching online, which is what I do. I'm not going to go in depth into the various types of coaching. A lot of what I do is a fair bit of what I do is what's called performance coaching, but I do a lot, or also do quite a bit of development coaching as well. And there's various forms of coaching. Other than to say that I think if you're getting into coaching, performance coaching is probably one of the easiest ones to get into initially if you're thinking about becoming a coach. Nor am I going to go into much depth in terms of the training that you might do to become a coach, although I do think that's important if you are developing a career in coaching as well. But I'm happy to take some questions around those aspects as well, if that's of interest to anyone watching. I would like to just acknowledge that I'm broadcasting today on Awabakal territory, and pay my respects to elders past and present. Pay also acknowledgement to my family, my boys. I think I should be asleep by now, but that allow me the time off to do these sort of things and indulge me in my passion a late night on a Wednesday evening. And thank you again to the Creative Careers in Medicine crew for giving me the slot tonight. So I wanted to share a little bit of story with you. This is Kevin. He's a great guy. He's a doctor from New Zealand, and he'd been wanting to get into cardiothoracics training for quite some time. And we worked this year on getting into cardiothoracics training, and we were actually quite successful in doing that. I think we had about 5 sessions of coaching all up in the end. And the thing was, Kevin had tried a few times before. And when I sat down with Kevin and when I started talking to him about his career and why he wanted to be a cardiothoracic surgeon, I'm a psychiatrist, so, take it with a grain of salt. But I felt there was a real compelling reason. I really understood why he was drawn to that specialty, and I understood his dedication and his passion, and I understood all this great stuff that he'd been doing in the lead up. But the thing was, he was really struggling with the interview, and that can happen for a lot of doctors. The thing about a job interview is it's a skill, it's a performance, but because we only use it fairly irregularly, it's not something that we keep up in terms of our training. And so we often need a bit of help around the time that we might be needing that skill. And that's where I come in as a potential coach, because coaching, I think, really helps for things like performance skills. And Kevin had actually used some coaches before, and he'd done a whole bunch of things. The problem was he was getting a lot of poor advice, and it had actually also affected his confidence. But really, when we sat down and were able to go through an approach to the interview, in this case, we're talking about a multiple mini interview, work through some of the questions and how you approach them, the frameworks, what's behind them, practice a lot of it. That's a lot of what I do. I encourage the client doctors I work with to practice in our sessions, but also practice in between. And they get a video of our session so they can go back and see what I've said and see how they look and sound with different variations on answers, etc., which uses a principle of immediacy of feedback or delivery of practice. It really accelerates their performance. And as I said, Kevin was successful in getting in to cardiothoracics training, which is a pretty hard scheme to get into. Now, I don't tell this story just to blow my own trumpet. I tell this because it kind of gives a bit of a context for why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I'm quite passionate about the interview process and making sure that on both sides of the table, the interview panel are getting the best result and the candidate turning up for the interview is getting the best result, based on their career or based on what the panel are looking for. And I just have, over the years, seen so much bad practice on both sides. I see, there are some good selection processes out there, there's no doubt. I see some very bad ones in medicine. And similarly, a lot of trainees just don't know how they go about preparing for these sort of things. So it really, does give me a warm glow when I get the results back from my clients. But also, if you're going to get into coaching, you want to be able to get good results for the people that you're coaching, and that's going to be important in building your client base, because you want to collect testimonials, and you want to grow. Also, one of the ways of growing as a coach is in terms of getting clients, is to obviously have things like word of mouth occurring as well. So this was what Kevin said to me when he'd finished and offered to give me a testimonial. Just a summary, I'd actually done a whole video on this. He sent me quite a long letter. He said, you can chop it down. I said, no, I'm actually going to read through that on YouTube, because it actually demonstrates quite a few principles around coaching. But he basically applied for 2 years. He'd done all the right things. He had a good CV, good referees, but the interview process let him down, and he'd actually got some bad advice about what to do in the past. And he says if he maybe worked with me previously, he might have been in already. So that gives you a bit of the context of the type of coaching that I'm actually doing. I might just pause to see if there's any questions or comments at this point in time. And I notice I might be flipping the PowerPoint around, so I'll try not to. Might just go with the PowerPoint like that. Any questions from anyone? If you can hear me, it'd be great if you could just in the comments box, whether you're on YouTube or Facebook, I can see both. We're doing a multi-live stream tonight. Just chuck a plus sign in there, or a yes, or a hi, or something like that. Just helps me to know that the 5 people that I can see watching at the moment are listening or can actually at least hear me. There's some sort of message would be great. Oh, thanks, Amanda. Brilliant. I noticed with some of the previous live streams there were problems with the audio or something like that. That's why I'm sort of just checking on that. All right. Well, I might just do this. This might work a little bit easier. No, actually, we'll see if that flips it around. I've worked it out. Okay. I've been doing this for 3 years now. Some of you know my background. It was the medical director or executive medical director at Hetty for 4 years between 2012 and 2016. And then after Hetty, I moved to Sydney from Newcastle, where I've been based for many years. Moved back to Newcastle. I was looking for the next phase of my career, and I was wanting to do something about medical workforce stuff. And that's how I came across Amandeep, actually. And so in 2017, I had 2 clients that I was coaching. I did 6 sessions. The following year, I had about 20 clients with about 55 sessions, and this year I've gone up to about 120 clients with almost 290 sessions. So that's between 2017 and 18, that's 900% growth. Between 2018 and 2019, it's 500% growth. I'm pretty sure I'm not going to get those numbers next year, but I think it's going to keep going to the point where it becomes a question for me in terms of, is this something I do as my main thing or not, which is great. So it just shows that you can grow a coaching business online in a fairly rapid time. And I'm now going to go into depth about how you can go about doing that as well. So how did this come about? As I said, I've been working with Amandeep for a while. We actually invited Amandeep to speak at our 2018 workshop on careers, the Advanced Med workshop. And that's kind of the first thing I did in terms of getting into my own side gig entrepreneurship, I guess, in medicine. I worked with, I met a lot of people when I was at Hetty, a lot of really great, very innovative trainee doctors. One of those trainee doctors that I met was Neil Goban from the Print Conference. And when I left Hetty, I had conversations with a range of people about doing some collaborations, but the one that worked out was the one with Neil and I, where we decided that, look, there seems to be a real concern from trainee doctors that they're not being effectively prepared for interviews. And so in 2017, in about, I think it was 6 weeks, no, a bit more than that, maybe 8 or 12, 10 weeks or something like that, we put together our first workshop, and it was fully subscribed. And so that kind of demonstrated that there was a market and a need for some of these things out there. So I started off putting together medical careers workshops, teaching people about things like CVs, interview preparation, etc. But I'll tell the story shortly. But off the back of that, people were asking me for sort of individual advice and support, which was great. So my background, I've had 20 plus years experience in the medical recruitment field. I've lost count of how many CVs and resumes I've looked at. I've filled a number of hard to fill jobs in my time. As I said, I was the executive medical director at Hetty, so doing things like the 1,000 interns per year and oversighting a whole lot of statewide New South Wales medical training programs. More recently, I've been advising colleges on their selection processes, including the College of Physicians and the College of Radiologists. So I just know way too much scary stuff about job interviews and medical and HR in general, more than most doctors should really know, I think. But I find it interesting, and I actually think it's important that we focus in on the human resources life cycle in medicine. If we were in a private company employing people, let's just look at consultants now, for example, $300,000 plus a year. Well, that's in most cases a C-suite, a chief, whatever kind of role they're reporting to. They just would throw everything at that recruitment episode. Yet what we seem to do in medicine and health is just try and get a bow on the seat sometimes and don't take it nearly seriously. And that can lead to really bad consequences. Anyway, I digress. You can see my passion for why I'm into this. But the question is, who can coach? And I might just break it there to see whether anyone online is a coach or, has had any thoughts about coaching or has some ideas about coaching. I see from Dan, you're mentioning the great accumulation of clients. There's some way I can promote that. I don't know how. What proportion are online versus face-to-face? And what specialties are most common trainers or consultants? So, look, 99% of my coaching is online, Dan. I'll get into the reason why. I might as well do that now. The thing about coaching is that online is that it's actually a lot easier. So I can sit here in my room in my house in Newcastle, my office, and come in 15 minutes before the session, go through my notes about the client that I'm seeing, watch over a little bit of the video, refresh myself, log in. They're sitting there, I'm sitting here, we get into it. It gets recorded, I make some notes afterwards. Half an hour later, the recording's done. I send that via email to the doctor, and it's all done and dusted. And from the coaching client's perspective, it's also more convenient for them. So some of my clients, I do management coaching as well. So some of my clients might be linking in from their work in their office, time slot that they can do. A lot of my people, though, are doing it from home in their own convenience. So they don't have to travel to come and see me. And actually, for most of them, that's just going to be ridiculously impossible anyway, because they're not actually in Newcastle. So I've even had, the funny thing is I've had some people from Newcastle approach me for coaching. I think I've even had one, but we still do it online because it's more convenient for both me and them. So, certainly in my past jobs when I've been an executive and done internal coaching, I obviously do it live, but it's pretty much 100% online. So that answers that question. What specialties are most common and trainees or consultant? So, look, that's a good one. I haven't got the stats for you. I do a lot of... So I do, from a Australian trainee doctor perspective, I do did a lot of surgical this year, ophthalmology. I got someone into ophthalmology, which is another hard one. A lot of basic physician, psychiatry, quite a few of the critical care, obstetrics and gynecology. Yeah, I think probably the big proportions were probably psychiatry, surgery, and physicians this year. Some of them are sort of at SRMO level, some obviously going into the college or the training posts, especially training posts. I also have a lot of advanced trainees doing like a transition package. So I've got one at the moment who's actually putting in a job interview today. I hope she got it in on time. Job application today for a job, going for her first consultant position. Maybe about 10% consultants now as well. So anything from junior, going for the first or second position, or more senior, going for like a leadership role, that sort of thing. Hey Ash, thanks Mandeep for the roll on the floor there, laughing. Yeah, so yeah, mainly trainees, but then oh, that's okay if you're late. I can recap if you miss anything. Um, so the so the other big bulk of what I do coaching though is international. So I do a lot of coaching with international medical graduates. So for example, and it's a real eye opener actually. I had a guy MJ he's an Australian, but he's been off to the States and done all his psychiatry over there, and he was wanting to come back to Australia this year. And through the course of this year, I basically helped walk him through the process of the specialist pathway, which you should have a look at what's involved. Hey Harish, so I don't know how many sessions it took us, but it took us quite a while to just get all that paperwork in, prepare for the college interview, prepare for the job interview, etc., etc. So yeah, about half of my client base is now international, whether that be specialists or just IMGs coming through the standard pathway process as well. A lot of what I do is someone will contact me and say, I just want to run through my chances of becoming a doctor in Australia. And it's always different for everyone. So we'll just do a once-off session where I go through it and explain things. I show them the AHPRA website, the AMC website, the specialist pathway, all the sort of things that they need to know. And then they might go away for 6 months and then they contact me and then we get into more of a job-focused coaching program as well. So yeah, hopefully that gives you kind of the variation there, Dan. And this part of the reason I'm getting so many people from everywhere is about the amount of free content that I put out. And I'm going to talk about that shortly because I think that's important if you want to grow your coaching business. You need to have a presence on the internet. Using the internet to connect to clients, they need to know that you're out there. They need to know what you do and where you focus. And so you have to think about blogging and vlogging and other ways of getting known. But again, coming back to my question, I'm just wondering if those who are watching, what sort of coaching are you doing? And if you're thinking about coaching, what sort of coaching are you thinking about getting into? Love to kind of hear your comments in the chat box below. Might take a sip of water while people are punching away at the keyboard there. I know that Ash Coxon does career coaching and has just launched a really exciting new course for trainee doctors to help with or actually not just trainee doctors, is it, Ash? For all doctors to help with career decisions. So feel free to put the link in the comments there, Ash. At some point I'll review it on YouTube. So anyway, if you've got any sort of thoughts or comments about what you're wanting to get into as a coach, please feel free to stick them in the chat box. So we might just go back to the slideshow then. So the question is also, what can you coach? So who can coach? I think anyone can coach. I think most doctors are pretty talented and good communicators, and that really helps with coaching. I think most of you out there have probably got some skills that you can coach in some way, shape or form, and could develop a coaching practice. The question though is, what are you going to coach? Um, and this can be quite interesting, quite varied, because it doesn't have to be even medically related. I see there are a few more messages, so I might just sort of check what people are saying. Ash has put her website in there. And Dan, I have an interest in performance coaching for anaesthetists. I'm very early on, just started a qualification with AIPC. Great. Okay. So when you say performance coaching for anaesthetists, Dan, are you looking at just improving their clinical performance, or sort of developing some of the CAN meds roles that might not have actually been quite done when they were training? And Ash, GPs and psychiatrists seem to spend so much time coaching. Well, there's a reason for that, Ash. We work holistically, but we also we've been trained in things like solution-focused approaches to and enabling and empowering our patients. And interestingly, and you would know this, a lot of the evidence base behind coaching actually comes from the psychological sciences in the first place. And so, one of the things I often see in medicine, and I think this group would, yeah, patient coaching, exactly. We coach our patients all the time. So, um, and so there you have a lot of translatable skills or generalizable and translatable skills in medicine. Often you just don't think about it or know about it. It's often I often have psychiatrists come to me and say, "Well, I don't know how to be a leader and a manager." And I go, "Well, you've just spent 5 or 6 years learning about how people tick." And one of the big things about management is people management. So, sorry, you do actually know a lot about leadership and management. You just haven't put it in the right context. So, um, so here's some ideas that I came up with. Um, so I've just loosely put them into medicine and outside of medicine. And I actually know pretty much someone who's doing one of these. So within medicine, I've seen people, coaching around the medical entrance exam and the interviews as well. People coaching around, there's plenty of programs out there to teach and train and coach in the college exams. Uh, People teaching how to do research, skills in medicine, careers like Ash. I don't think Jules Wilcox charges for his advice about finance, but he probably should, because he knows a lot about it, and that's another skill that often a lot of doctors need. And there's a big business for doctors Facebook group out there. Setting up a practice, burnout, like Dan was mentioning, and Amy Imms is a member of this group as well. And then there's outside of medicine. We do actually often have a lot of skills and attributes from outside of the medicine that we bring in. And I always encourage the people I work with in their careers to feel competent outside of medicine as well as inside of medicine, and try and hang on to some of those things. But you might have a particular hobby that other people want to know how to get into. You might be good at writing. You might be like me, you're good at technology, fitness, music. You can teach someone how to play guitar as a coach online these days. Art, the world's your oyster. So it doesn't have to be in medicine. If there's something else that you're passionate about, well, maybe you can coach around that. So getting to the how. So I think firstly you have to pick something that you are good at. But I put an asterisk there because I think this is where people kind of bring in the imposter syndrome. I don't think you have to be an expert at something. Again, the thing about the internet is there are all these novices out there looking for a skill, and perhaps the skill that you've just actually recently mastered or gotten a level of proficiency at, you actually might be better at teaching that than someone who's learnt it for 20 years and forgotten all the key steps, because you can actually work people through that process. Um, so you need to pick something that you're good at and passionate about as well. But then obviously you need to be able to connect with an audience. And as I say, I think the internet has made it much easier for people with all sorts of crazy, unique coaching programs to connect with people, because you know if you if you want to search for a certain skill or a thing, I bet you if you go into YouTube and put in a how-to, you'll find someone who's doing some videos about that, who will probably also have a bit of a coaching business on the sideline around that particular thing. And then you need tools to connect with your audience, and hopefully when you transferring those audience into clients, to actually connect up with your clients online. I noticed there are a few more comments, so I will just check those. Ash is saying she needs to go. That's okay, Ash. And Harish, I'm an IMG. I work in accredited IC units in overseas. Will I? Okay, so you're asking a careers-related question there, Harish. So we're doing a live stream about how to get into coaching tonight. But if you go to the Advanced Med website and just go to the chat bot that's there, so advancedmed.com.au, leave me a bit of a message. I'm happy to get back to you and respond to you on your question there, mate. All right. So I think someone's already presented about Ikigai. I'd be surprised if they haven't to the Creative Careers group. So I'm not going to spend too much on this concept, but I do think it sort of explains how you can take something that you're passionate about and move it into something that people need. And again, I think the power of the internet allows people to connect up on things that they love, that people actually need, and you can get good at things, and you can actually get paid for it, which is great. So Ikigai is a Japanese concept that's been around forever, as I understand it, and it literally translates into something like life and joy. And so it was sort of brought out into the mainstream a couple of decades ago. And I've seen a lot of people in the FOMED space kind of talking about this concept in the last couple of years. And apparently it's similar to some other things in Japanese like hatarakugai, which means the value of work or things that are worth doing. So the idea here is you kind of use this Venn diagram to kind of find your niche. And so if you get into YouTube, which I have, one of the first concepts you'll be told about is identifying your niche. And this is similar in medical education as well, and medical research, trying to find the niche where people get to know you as a bit of an expert in your area. And one of the things you need to think about is a little bit like developing a research question. Sometimes I think you can start a bit too broad in terms of where you want to be. It might actually help to focus down a little bit more. So, for example, in my case, I guess I started out wanting to be a doctor coach, and I do a variety of doctor coaching, but I've ended up sort of focusing in on particularly performance training around job applications and career transitions, I guess. And that's helped people to know that I have a particular skill in coaching in that particular area. So as I said, 3 years ago we put on this workshop that was sold out in Sydney, which did show that there was a need amongst trainee doctors for this sort of information and help and advice. Off the back of that, I was contacted by Sadhana, who was a trainee doctor, and actually I think my very first coaching client. And the reason I got into coaching Sadhana was that she couldn't get to the workshop. So rapidly I put together a bit of a package for her and said, oh, well, if we can hop online with Zoom, I'll charge you this amount of money and we'll work through the process of your application. She was, again, she had lots of great career stories, but she really had a heart set on getting into RPA as a basic physician trainee, and wanted to sort of do something extra to sort of guarantee that. We're pretty confident she could get into BPT training that year coming, but she particularly wanted to get into RPA. And again, we managed to do that, and she was gracious enough to provide me a testimonial, which I've kind of used a lot on my website, which has probably helped to attract other clients. But it was this sort of serendipity where we're running, group medical training, and I was also developing online courses to teach people how to put their CV together, that sort of thing, thinking that people might want to buy that and engage with me that way. But all of a sudden someone's saying, no, I actually want to engage with the expert one-on-one. And that's kind of flipped around some of the stuff I've done. I sell courses online, and that's a reasonably profitable thing as well. But actually, a lot of those courses I give away now as part of a coaching package because they help to reinforce my coaching principles, and they also, add value to the attractiveness of the package that someone's buying as well. So, in terms of coaching online, as I said, it's important that you're thinking about how you're going to connect with your potential audience. And there's lots of ways of doing that. I think you can't beat old-fashioned word of mouth. And I see a lot of people on the internet sort of talking about the sort of various crazy marketing strategies and running various ads. And I do run some ads occasionally. But if you haven't got a good product at the end of it, if you're not providing a good coaching service, if you haven't got testimonials from people, if you can't point to results, then word of mouth's going to get back and it's going to kill you off. So I think sometimes you can get ahead of yourself in terms of trying to connect with your audience, particularly if you're going down the advertising route. I would recommend, as you can see from my journey, it was like 2 clients in 2017, growing at about, I think it was 20 or something in 2018, and now over 100. Focus in on just getting those first few happy customers. You're not going to get things right the first time, but maybe you have to give people another session for free. And make sure you get the results and learn from those first few people that you work with as clients, because they will help you to grow yourself in terms of how you're providing a service, but make sure that you're providing a good product for people in the future. And then you can use things like advertising with Google Ads and Facebook. But there are various organic cheap strategies as well. They're not completely free because they involve your time and paying for hosting web pages and things like that. But you can also attract a lot of attention from having good search engine optimized, what's now called search engine research page optimized posts on the web. And I think also things like Facebook groups. I see a lot of people have Facebook groups where they engage with people and provide expert information and grow their audience that way. And don't forget good old solid email as well. Email marketing can be really helpful too. So the audience is out there. You just have to find ways of connecting to it. Everyone's going to be different. The way I connect with my audience is mainly through providing blog contents and my YouTube channel. And there's a specific reason for that. So the number one search engine in the world is, of course, Google. And this is you can see there if you can read the screen, this is an example of a search engine recognition page optimized blog post. So I wrote a post about doctors being on LinkedIn. It now ranks number one on Google for a number of search terms. And if you go and read my blog posts, you'll see that they're structured in a certain way, they're done in a certain way. It's about making sure there's useful content, but there are a few other tricks to it. But this is powerful in terms of getting recognized and what's called domain authority for your website out there. I then do YouTube videos, and the thing about that is often I'm doing a YouTube video based on a blog post I've written or the other way around. YouTube is the world's second biggest search engine. It's the other place people go for, how do I do a job interview as a doctor? And because it's owned by Google, Google search and YouTube actually work synergistically. So that's, if I haven't been able to sit down lately and look at my stats in terms of where people are coming from to me, but I know a lot of my leads are being generated off my website directly or from YouTube without me having to go to, Facebook ads or Google ads very much. there's the workshops that help with the branding. There's the email. I've got the MailChimp there. I'm actually moving away from MailChimp at the moment. I do a bit of Google ads. I have a Facebook group and I do a few Facebook ads, but most of my effort is put into providing useful content in my niche area on YouTube and on my website. And I think if you're considering going into coaching online, you really need to think about having a YouTube channel. It will tremendously grow your audience and connect people up with you. I might just pause there because that might have generated a few questions. No? If you've got any questions about that, just feel free to check them in the chat box below. Obviously, you need a bit of technology. Now, everyone's got a computer and a webcam generally. I wouldn't recommend what this lady's doing, which is sitting there on your lap. I think a good desk setup like I've got at the moment, I've actually got two screens going, which means I can look at the slides coming up and make sure the stream's working, etc. That's quite handy when you're coaching as well, because you can look at one screen for what I use Zoom meeting, and on the right-hand side, you can have things like the selection criteria for the job the person's going for, or practice questions ready to go, that sort of thing. But yeah, look, most people will have a desktop PC, which will have a reasonably good webcam and microphone, and you can pretty much go from there. I think the other thing that you want to consider is your internet bandwidth and making sure you're in a region where the NBN's not too bad. I find with most of my clients, it's not an issue. I've got reasonably good internet. It's not stellar. It's about 30 to 45 download megabits per second of an evening. It's slower on the upload off, obviously. So I'm usually not the person that's got the connectivity issue. And most of my clients, maybe they filter themselves out based on whether they think they've got good internet or not, find the connection pretty okay as well. So it's much less of a barrier than I guess it would have been even a couple of years ago. I would also recommend you have a fail-safe plan that you can switch over to, say, a 5G hotspot for all those times when the internet doesn't work for you or lets you down. If you're going to add anything in technology-wise, I recommend some sort of USB microphone just to improve the audio quality, particularly for the recording back later. But I don't think you necessarily need to do that first off. In terms of your web presence, as a minimum, I think in terms of tools for the web, I think you have to have a domain name. You need some sort of email, preferably linked to that domain name. You'll need some sort of cloud storage for your videos if you're going to be recording them and sending them back to your clients. And you will need a video platform. I use Zoom. I'm not using Zoom tonight, but I use Zoom for coaching meetings. There are a bunch of them out there. Zoom's a very stable one and user-friendly one, and it would be the one that I would recommend that you use first off. It'll be less hassle to set up, and it's reasonably affordable for the meetings. Webinars cost a lot more on Zoom, but just to do meetings, and you can try it out for free. I've put a link in the descriptions below. You can actually use it for up to 40 minutes. So you could actually do a 39-minute coaching session, but it looks a bit unprofessional if the client's sitting there and it all of a sudden cancels on them. So probably you want to upgrade a little bit. I think you also need some location on the web. That could be a web page or website. It could be a Facebook page or group. I've seen that done as well. It doesn't necessarily need to be your own website straight off the bat. I see there was a comment. Then saying, you mentioned that you're moving towards more coaching. How much time do you devote to coaching versus clinical work? Generating content, etc., and sessions themselves clearly are a big time commitment. Yeah, look, that's absolutely true, Dan. And I think, again, it's interesting because if you're starting out coaching, you're not going to have a lot of clients. So you can actually start out generating that content, and it's going to be fairly easy if you've got a bit of spare time. Like if you've got a good, if you've got a spare 4 to 8 hours a week, you can normally knock out a YouTube video or a blog post or something like that. And you can start building that up. And maybe you want to do that for a year and focus less on the trying to go out there and get lots of clients. It'll probably be crickets for a little while. But once you've got the basis, the content out there, the people starting to know you and coming to your website, usually takes several months for your website to kind of get picked up by Google and start to rank for anything. There are ways of accelerating that and improving it. Similar with YouTube, my initial experience with YouTube was, I'm going to be on there and talk something that no one's ever talked about, and that'll be picked up by lots of people. Nada for ages. And then finally I did a long video about how to put your medical CV together and started to get a bit of traction. The first year you probably have the time to do what you're talking about there. As you build up though, yes, you're kind of balancing off, okay, I needed to put a bit more content out there to grow my audience more versus I'm starting to get clients coming in. So I'm actually on long service leave from my health service at the moment because I've been getting so busy. So it's giving me some of the free time I need to do some of this stuff, and I've been trying to use that time to build up my web presence a bit more, my YouTube channel, as well as working out the coaching programs that work and how to establish good funnels for people to come in to grab those packages, etc. So that's how I'm managing it at the moment. But I think in a lot of these sort of, even if any side gig in medicine that's becoming more of a main gig, I think there is a kind of a transition point where it's a bit hard because you're not quite making the money from it that you need to give up the other clinical side of things, but there probably becomes a tipping point. So Eddie, my first advice would be probably, think about if you can dedicate 4 to 8 hours a week for a solid period of time building up that content presence, that will help to grow those people that are connecting with you. So that's kind of the minimum. As you grow, you're definitely going to want a booking platform. What do I mean by a booking platform? I mean something, again, on the web where people can go. I use something called Bookify. So they can see when you're available. They can book you. You can block things out. You can put gaps between clients. You can reschedule if you want, that sort of thing. That automates the process of booking, because you don't want to be dealing with emails all the time and sending appointments yourself and mucking them up because you get the time, particularly for someone like me, because the time frames are wrong. You want something that just handles that all for you. And most of these booking platforms can also handle payments as well. So I think that reduces a lot of friction from your side. So that's something I would definitely say you need to as you grow a bit. I think you do need a blog site of some presence. I'm a big rabid fan of WordPress. I've used other content management sites before. I'm not going to go into too much depth tonight as to why you should definitely use WordPress, but you should. It's basically the best platform out there for blogging. It's search engine optimized. There's a reason why 25% of the websites in the world are powered by WordPress. Blog posts look really bad if they're horrible thumbnails. So probably some sort of stock photo thing that probably only costs you about $100 a year for accessing. I think in a lot of cases, some sort of YouTube channel helps. And the sneaker, the thing that I hadn't kind of thought would work so well for me is having a chat bot. So one of those things that like sit in the bottom corner of your website and pop up and say, "Hi, I'm Anthony. Do you have any questions for me?" I just bought that on an Appsumo deal once just to give it a go and see how it went. And actually, it's been tremendously helpful in stopping people from just browsing my website or not being able to work out that there's a header menu there and this is where services are, which you'll be amazed at how you think your website's really clear as to where people should go to book things or pay for things. No. That chatbot actually generates a lot of leads for me and connections, and I've set it up basically so people can ask questions. It can direct people to the key pages they might be looking for, and if I'm not available at that time, which I often am not, it'll also then send them to my booking platform where they can book a 15-minute free call to discuss a service if they've got any queries. So my stack is, this is not all of it. So this is what I use technology, well, web-wise, not technology-wise. I've got a iMac and a Logitech webcam and a Blue Yeti microphone and a Stream Deck and a few other things. But on the web, I use the Bookify platform. I'm looking at transferring over to something called Book Like a Boss, which I would definitely recommend you look at if you're getting into coaching. I have a WordPress site, which is powered by AstroTheme. Elementor is a page builder for that. My learning management system is Lifter LMS, which I can highly recommend. I use WooCommerce. You can collect payments in other ways. One of the good things about WooCommerce is, again, as you grow, you can actually understand where your clients are coming from and where you can focus on growing your business more and use things like Google Analytics to connect that to and understand where you should be heading. I have managed hosting, so I don't just host on any old plan. You want to have a reasonably fast website. Mine's actually fairly sluggish at the moment because there's a lot on it. So I'm actually, for those technical out there, I'm actually subdomaining it out and moving the shop to one subdomain and the blog to another just to speed it up a bit. That'll take me a few more months, but I'll get there. I use MailChimp for collecting emails, but I'm moving to something called the SendFox, which is really good, cheaper, and it doesn't have all the bells and whistles that MailChimp does have, but actually that can be a bit of a relief. You don't want so many complications. And the chatbot I have is called Continually. If people are interested in any of these sort of apps, etc., and want to try them out, feel free to contact me because I've got some spare licenses for some of these things. I'm almost coming to the end, and that's just cut itself off at the top. I will take some questions at the end as well, but just a couple of plugs. A group of us who do coach as doctors in Australia, there's been a few attempts to sort of work out, I guess, a collaboration or a meetup or whatever. We've been talking about this again, and we'd like to see if we can establish a regular peer review group. So if you are a doctor coach, I've got the link in the description below. Just feel free to sign up for this peer review group that we're trying to establish. We're going to run it every second month on a weeknight. You can see that the first meeting is going to be Tuesday, the 28th of January at 7:30. I think I feel it would be useful to be regularly doing peer review with other doctor coaches out there. We envisage that we would probably talk about in confidence of clients and issues that we're having around that, and maybe just the process of becoming a coach and developmental issues, that sort of stuff, sharing tips and perspectives, etc. And I think as you move out of clinical medicine, the whole maintaining a standard of revalidation gets a lot harder. You can see AHPRA coming in and wanting to regulate this a bit more with their revalidation approach. So peer review is kind of going to be a good thing for people doing, unique things in medicine as well. So anyway, if you're interested in that, there's a link in the description for it. We'd love to sort of have you on the list for the meeting notices. And then secondly, if you want to get in contact with me about any of this stuff, there's my website, advancedmed.com.au. There's my email address, anthony@advancedmed.com.au. And please go to the Career Doctor channel and subscribe and turn on notifications and like all my videos. Leave 500 comments because that really helps. And thanks again to Jess and Amandeep for setting this up and giving me access to the Facebook page so I could dual stream it. I'm amazed this has actually worked. I think it's the first time I've dual streamed anything. So yeah, see if there's any questions. Now, if you're watching this not live or after the fact, if you do have questions, you've just had my contact details. But again, you can probably leave it in the comment box below, whether you're watching this on the Facebook page or the YouTube video, and I'm certainly happy to respond. As I say, I'm really keen to sort of support others who might be wanting to get into this. If you're thinking about getting into coaching online and looking for a bit of advice or mentoring, feel free to contact me. I've been through, made a lot of mistakes, so I could probably accelerate your learning a little bit as well. And if there are no more questions, thank you very much for watching tonight. And as I say on YouTube, I'll see you in the next video.